She is well known worldwide as the spouse of one of the world's most powerful spiritual leaders. However, very few people are aware of the burden she has quietly borne behind the walls of a house that is full of love and responsibility. Grace Jakes has supported her husband for years, handling the stress, the spotlight, and the gossip with unflinching poise. At the age of 67, however, she is now at last prepared to tell her tale. Grace Jakes has long been regarded as the storm's calm. Grace's life has been constantly scrutinized since she is the wife of well-known Christian leader Bishop T.D. Jakes. She has supported the guy she loved and believed in through all of life's highs and lows, victories and setbacks. Many people have praised their marriage, which is a testament to their love for one another and their religion. However, underneath the smiles and public personas, Grace has borne a weight that few can comprehend. Grace was quiet for decades. She supported her husband despite the criticism, the strain of managing one of the world's greatest church ministries, and the occasional rumor. Grace never raised her voice in spite of the rumors and charges that sometimes pervaded the atmosphere. So far, Grace has now decided it's time for the truth to be revealed after bearing the burden of quiet for years. However, this goes beyond her spouse and the gossip that has surrounded their life. It tells the story of her journey as a mother, wife, and woman who decided to put her family's safety first, even if it meant sacrificing her own voice. Her tale is one of fortitude, tenacity, and the type of subdued bravery that only Grace could have. We are welcomed into a realm of truth when we hear her words today, information that has been kept concealed for far too long. While Grace's words today will tell a different narrative of love, betrayal, forgiveness, and the strong faith that has kept her family together through it all, her quiet screamed volumes. It began softly like a whisper in the wind, and gradually grew louder until it was a topic of conversation. The stories that started to circulate a few years ago about Bishop T.D. Jakes were unlike anything Grace had ever encountered. In the groups they had previously believed to be secure, rumors of financial wrongdoing and adultery started to circulate. The whispers seemed to take on a life of their own, and the same individuals who had supported them for years, those they thought of as family, now seemed to have doubts. Speculation flourished on social media as tweets accused the bishop of things Grace couldn't have imagined. Sensational headlines about his alleged misconduct began to appear in news pieces, throwing doubt on the life they had created together. Grace heard the murmurs, witnessed these tales, and felt the pressure of it all. But she said nothing, refusing to respond, refusing to interact. She had, after all, always supported her husband because she trusted him and his dedication to their ministry. Nothing, not even gossip or rumors, could dispel her faith in him. Even quiet, however, is not ignored. Grace heard two ladies talking at the church's entrance one day as she was strolling around the hallways. Despite their quiet tones, their statements were incisive and judgmental. One lady murmured, "It's only a matter of time before she leaves him," the words lingering in the air like a thick mist. As the words replayed in her head, Grace paused, standing still in the corridor, her heart lowering. She concealed the fact that she had heard them, but she felt a surge of anxiety. They had been a member of their church community for years and were individuals she had trusted. How were they supposed to trust these rumors? How were they able to question what she and TD had created together? However, Grace remained silent, at least not in their presence. Rather, she kept going, concentrating on the work at hand. No matter what was going on behind closed doors, she had always taken satisfaction in being the silent force that kept things together. The rumors continued as the days went on. Their volume only increased. With every day that went by, Grace could feel the strain mounting and the weight of her silence increasing. Being a very devout lady, she felt that she should always be there for her husband. However, the strain was becoming intolerable. Even though she was aware that their reputation was deteriorating, she was unable to speak out. The thought of adding gasoline to the inferno was too much for her. She was being consumed by the strain to keep up their public persona in order to preserve the family's image. Every day was a struggle between her increasing concern that the truth will ultimately surface in ways they weren't ready for and her confidence in her spouse. Grace was caught between the increasing skepticism that appeared to be all around her. She did not speak, however, as she usually had. Grace understood that sometimes the only option was to remain silent. Still, she had a sneaking suspicion that something was about to change. The strain between the life they had created and the chaos they were experiencing, as well as the weight of the rumors, was becoming to be too much. When she would speak out was now the issue, not whether she would. Each day had seemed more burdensome than the one before it. Grace had made her quiet her shield, but it was flimsy. Every rumor and murmur seemed like a hole in the barrier she had painstakingly erected around her family. She had always trusted that time and faith would take care of everything, but as the whispers weighed on her, she started to wonder whether keeping quiet was enough. Then, one day, everything changed. The silence of the home was broken when the phone rang. Uncertain of what was waiting for her on the other end, Grace's fingers trembled as she reached for it, almost pausing before responding. The statements came from a calm voice on the other end of the call. A prominent reporter, renowned for his investigative journalism, was giving her the opportunity to put an end to the allegations. An exclusive interview. This was her time, her chance to finally tell the truth and correct the record. Grace listened carefully as 1,000 ideas raced through her head. Although she had anticipated this moment, she wasn't sure whether she was prepared for it now that it has arrived. Grace looked out the window while the reporter spoke. The choice weighed heavily on her, causing her fingers to shake slightly. She reflected about her husband, Diddy Jakes, who had dedicated decades to establishing his name and ministry. She considered her girls, whose lives had been examined by the world and who had grown up in the limelight. Would it harm them to speak up? Would it destroy all they had put so much effort into creating? Grace became aware that she hadn't spoken anything as the stillness on the other end of the phone deepened. The journalist waited calmly, allowing her time to reflect. But recollections invaded her head during that quiet. Reminiscences of a period before the agony, the uncertainties, and the rumors. Rewind. A younger Grace and T.D. Jakes are seen standing next to one another in the early years of their ministry. They were ambitious, youthful, and full of optimism. While Grace was his constant source of support, planning events and guiding him through the challenges of church leadership, T.D. Jakes was a fiery preacher. Their link was deep and their love was indisputable. The future appeared boundless and full of possibilities back then. The delight and confidence they had when they started their ministry from scratch are seen in the flashback. Ever charming, T.D. Jakes addressed audiences of thousands, and Grace was the silent engine of his success. They had been a group, a cohesive entity. They were impervious to everything. The rumors and the tensions that surround them in the present create a sharp contrast. She was left clutching the fragments of their broken image as the guy she had married and previously known came under public scrutiny. Grace felt an enormous feeling of duty as the memory faded and the present returned, her heart heavy with the choice. What would happen to her family, their future, and their ministry if she came out? Would the truth cause more unrest, or would it be sufficient to put things in perspective? Every possibility that sprung to me was more intimidating than the one before it. However, one thing was more noticeable than everything else. Even if quiet had been consoling, Grace understood it was no longer enough to keep them safe. Too loud, too persistent were the rumors. They were no longer limited to private discussions and postings on social media. The moment of stillness was over. With her fingers still shaking in her lap, Grace sat in the silence of the room after the phone conversation ended. The choice was weighing heavily on her chest, but she knew that it was time to confront the reality, and Grace made a decision then and there. She would talk. She refused to let the falsehoods dictate their narrative any longer. Regardless of the repercussions, it was time to correct the record. Grace took a deep breath and got to her feet. This was the culmination of years of quiet. Now that the pivotal moment had arrived, there was no going back. The time has come. Grace had been dreading this moment for years, but suddenly she found herself seated across from a reporter in the bright glare of an interview set. The tranquil simplicity of the space seemed almost serene, yet there was a noticeable tension in the air. The world was pushing down on Grace, and she could feel it. Her family has been plagued by this for a long time. It wasn't simply another interview. With her fingertips softly resting on the chair's arm, she inhaled deeply while attempting to calm herself. This would not be simple. When the truth was hidden under layers of falsehoods and half-truths, it was never. However, the moment had come to face the falsehoods and rumors that had been obscuring their lives. The question that had been on everyone's mind was posed by the reporter, who sat across from her and had a composed but straightforward face. Bishop T.D. Jakes, your spouse, has been charged with embezzlement and improper use of church money. Are you able to verify these rumors? For a little while, Grace did not answer as the words lingered in the air like a heavy weight. She just sat there, her heart thumping in her chest, her eyes unwavering. She knew she would ultimately have to answer the straightforward question, but she wasn't going to let the rumors dictate the story. Grace spoke in a steady but forceful voice, leaning forward a little, with the calm resolve that comes only to those who have mastered the art of patience and strength. Every rumor has some truth to it, she said, taking a moment to process the impact of her statement. The reporter waited for her to continue, his eyes widening slightly, but he said nothing. Grace went on, but not in the way they tell it. Let me clarify. An affair did not occur. Our marriage had not been betrayed. People don't realize how difficult it is to deal with the weight of a ministry this size, the scrutiny, and the pressures of public life. Grace hesitated, her gaze now fixed on the reporter. Although she could feel her heart racing, she was beginning to experience a wave of relief. Now that the truth was out, she felt as if a burden had been removed. It was even more difficult to deal with the rumors of financial misconduct, she said. People sometimes don't get the difficulties of managing a large ministry since we have been in the spotlight for so long. There will always be those who want to destroy what others have put so much effort into creating. However, such charges were untrue. There was no financial mismanagement. We have always prioritized the needs of the church and been open and honest. People who didn't see the whole picture formed assumptions and misunderstood the situation, which led to the rumors. Grace inhaled deeply and closed her eyes for a minute to examine herself. It was one thing to speak out, but it was quite another to reveal the grief and suffering brought on by the rumors. However, she had to do it for her family and herself. She remarked, her voice calmer now, people don't see the toll this kind of thing takes on a family. The late nights, the restless hours, and the never-ending stress are invisible to them. They are blind to the sacrifices we have made to sustain our ministry and the personal hardships we have endured. The allegations of adultery are only the tip of the iceberg. The personal struggles we engaged in behind closed doors were unknown to them. Anybody may be driven to their breaking point by doors, pressure, stress, and the weight of public expectations. As if addressing the world directly, she halted once again, her gaze now fixed on the camera. But Diddy and I remained together throughout it all. Despite all we've gone through, we've emerged stronger. We will not allow the rumors to define us any more than they did before. Grace's voice was calm yet full of the quiet power that had always been a part of her, and her words hung in the air. Reclaiming her tale and her family's story was more important than just correcting the record. The reporter wasn't sure what to say next, so there was a little silence in the room, but Grace had said all she needed to. The once loud rumors started to fade into the background as the truth was eventually revealed. She was telling the truth. The reality of a lady who for far too long had maintained her family, stood by her husband, and endured the storm in quiet. When the time came, Grace Jakes was prepared to share the true tale with the world. As if the weight of Grace's remarks had descended upon her and filled the interview room, the air seemed thicker now. Except for the odd nod from the reporter, the room was silent. There was more to this than a simple interview. Her truth, unadulterated and unrefined, was now being stated out loud. The scene changed again while Grace was speaking, this time to memories that provided insight into the individual struggles that had influenced the couple's life. The picture of a younger Diddy from a flashback, the guy who suddenly sat next to Grace, was a far cry from Jake's. He seems to be overburdened by the demands of leadership in the early years of his ministry. He worked late into the night, balancing meetings, sermons, and the mounting needs of his church, his forehead wrinkled in concentration. However, Grace was there for him throughout those times, supporting him even when it seemed like the strain would break him. On many late evenings, TD would come home weary, his thoughts weighed down by choices that had an impact on his family as well as the ministry. The flashbacks demonstrated Grace's quiet resilience in those trying times, as well as her dual roles as a partner and wife who helped bear the weight of leadership. However, the pressure increased along with the ministry. It was clearly evident that managing a ministry of this size was not without its difficulties. Their relationship had suffered as a result of the pressure of expectations and the ongoing scrutiny from both within and outside their group. They were both emotionally spent, and at times the tension felt overwhelming. Grace's viewpoint. Grace's face softened as she considered the sacrifices she and her husband had made as she sat in front of the reporter, her eyes a bit far away. She said in a calm but emotionally charged voice that the rumors were never the complete story. Although they don't, people believe they know what goes on behind closed doors. They were blind to our late-night conversations, our marital difficulties, and our periods of uncertainty and anxiety. Not everything was simple. Not every time did we get it correctly. She inhaled deeply, her shoulders seeming to sag slightly with the weight of those years. However, there was a calm resolution in her voice when she spoke again. But I can say this despite everything. My spouse has never let me down. The rumors were simply that, rumors. Rumors. No matter what others say, They will never understand the struggles we have faced. The truth between us is what counts. In all honesty, we had experienced our fair share of hardships, but infidelity was never one of them. I don't know that dude. I didn't marry that guy. Grace's remarks weighed heavily on the room. She wasn't only protecting her spouse, she was standing up for their devotion to one another and their love. This was no place for the rumors that had plagued them for so long. In her truth, no. Moment of climax. However, the interview was not yet finished. Sensing the intensity of the discussion, the reporter moved closer and said in a kind but inquisitive tone, "How was your marriage impacted by the rumors? Did you ever worry that it might all fall apart?" For a minute, Grace stopped, looking from the reporter to the camera. She had put up a fierce battle to keep her family safe from the harsh criticism of the outside world. Now, however, she let herself be vulnerable for the first time. She made the armor's fractures visible to everyone. Grace acknowledged that there were times when she could hardly speak above a whisper. Sometimes the weight of the allegations, the rumors, and the falsehoods was almost too much to handle, and the grief seemed too intense. It put our relationship and beliefs to the test. Yet, we persisted. We got into a fight. We battled for our ministry, our family, and our marriage. That's what people fail to notice. They are blind to the effort we put out, the forgiveness we have had to extend to one another, and the trust we have had to regain. As she spoke about forgiveness, her voice trembled a little. The rumors weren't the only thing involved. It was about their shared personal hardships and the times they had damaged one another, whether intentionally or inadvertently, but always with the knowledge that they could get over it. "We've discovered that forgiveness is a continuous process," Grace said. "It is a continuous procedure. It's making the decision to trust even when it seems unattainable. It's being open and honest even when it's difficult. Additionally, it's realizing that love is worth fighting for even when it's not flawless." The emotional climax of the interview has arrived. Although Grace's eyes were full with unshed tears, she suddenly had a calmness about her that had been lacking for a long time. As she shared her truth, the years of quiet, the burden of the rumors, and the emotional toll were all starting to lessen. Grace's voice was solid with conviction as she stated, "I don't regret standing by my husband. We've experienced more than most people can comprehend, and I wouldn't alter a thing. Yes, our love has been put to the test, but it has also grown stronger." There was a profound quiet in the room. Grace's remarks had a lasting effect on the room. It was more than a tale of a lady supporting her husband. It was a tale of perseverance, enduring love, and the strength of openness and forgiveness. The truth had come to light, and it was evident at that very moment that the relationship between Grace and T.D. Jakes was too strong to be broken by any rumor or falsehood. As Grace Jakes, now tall and calm, appeared with her husband, T.D. Jakes, in front of a packed church auditorium, the interview room vanished into the distance. The air had changed. Although some people were still troubled by the rumors, Grace's moving and sincere remarks had changed the course of events. There was a fresh feeling of oneness where uncertainty had previously been. There was now a tale of truth and resiliency where there had previously been rumors. The hubbub of the assembly turned to stillness as they entered the church event. They were followed by eyes, but not with condemnation. This pair had survived the storm together and emerged stronger on the other side, and there was a silent awareness of that. Grace's mere being by her husband's side was a message. Her speech seemed to have put an end to the years of unsaid conflict, the gossip, and the pain. She wasn't only supporting T.D. Jakes, she was supporting their marriage, their family, and the truth they had worked so hard to defend. After Grace finished speaking, the microphone was briefly handed to her. "The truth will always be louder than any falsehood," she said as the audience waited in anticipation. Her words were quiet, but they were clear and carried the weight of all she had gone through. And as a result, we are stronger. It was more than a simple proclamation. It was a pledge. A pledge that the truth had been revealed in spite of the difficulties they encountered. The cacophony and lies would never overpower that fact. In addition to advocating for her husband, Grace had done so for herself, their solid relationship, and the future they were creating, storytelling. It was hard to overlook the picture of Grace and T.D. Jakes walking hand in hand together. Their linked hands, a representation of the relationship that had endured hardship and the test of time, were captured by the camera as it zoomed in. They went side by side, confronting the world together, and there was something strong about it. They had outlived the days of hushed talks and unseen conflicts. After speaking their truth and confronting the rumors, they were finally free to face the future. An affair did not occur. Our marriage had not been betrayed. People don't realize how difficult it is to deal with the weight of a ministry this size, the scrutiny, and the pressures of public life. Grace hesitated, her gaze now fixed on the reporter. Although she could feel her heart racing, she was beginning to experience a wave of relief. Now that the truth was out, she felt as if a burden had been removed. It was even more difficult to deal with the rumors of financial misconduct, she said.